Hey, Dave. Hey, Dave. Dave's muted. Hey, Teresa.
Hey there.
Hey, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, how are y'all?
Good to see you.
Thanks for joining us.
Are you at the home office, Carl?
I am, yeah.
Show me the beautiful view.
So I appreciate your coming on today, Dave.
No problem. You doing well?
We are kind of ready to move on past this, but
Oh God,
it is what it is, huh? I see you got your, you wear your mask now all the time or whatever.
There you go.
Yeah, I saw you on TV the other day. It looked pretty impressive.
Yeah, my wife doesn't like it because she says it does me no good. I'd argue that it does me a heck of a lot of good. You know?
So Teresa, I see 7 participants.
Yes, we should have more joining us. So we'll get started right at 1. So we'll give them a couple more minutes.
So Dave, I guess you're at your downtown office?
Yep, here every day. You know, it actually works out fairly well. We start off with meetings in the morning around 7 o'clock with the medical center, and then we have the mayor's meeting at 9. And then we usually regroup around 2 for the press conference around 3. And then after that, we all go our separate ways. So.
Well, you guys have been doing a good job handling the city.
Yeah. I think it's worked out fairly well.
Since we don't have any books to open up to see how you handle something like this.
I don't think anybody has this textbook.
Yeah.
I saw de Blasio's complaining he needs $7 billion from the government. I'm like, really? 7 billion. That's not an interesting small number, that's for sure.
Yeah.
How's your crew? How's the firm? Everybody doing okay?
Yeah. We've had.
Are they still working every day or what?
Yeah. Some of them from home just because of concern, but really hadn't slowed too much. Chad's still visiting project sites because, you know, it's construction and architects are essential, which is good.
Yeah, I just got off the phone with conference with Dr. Fagan, and she was talking about the opening of the new Centennial Elementary or something. Did y'all do that one? Oh, okay. Yeah, it's amazing. And they're talking about building the new North Belt Elementary. So.
Well, that's been added on and renovated a number of times. It's probably about time.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, it's 1 o'clock. Are you all ready to start? I think we'll probably still have some people jumping on, but let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon and welcome to everybody. We saw some of you this morning. We're doing a twofer today on Monday. We started today with a congressional discussion on a WRDA bill and also infrastructure stimulus packages. Now we're bringing it more local. For 30 years, BayTran has been an advocate for transportation projects, and we represent over 30 communities in our region, which includes Harris, Brazoria, and Galveston counties. And so today what we're doing is connecting with Mayor Pro Tem Dave Martin from the City of Houston and getting this series started. So if you'd like to say a couple of things, Carl.
Yeah, for sure. Again, Dave, we really appreciate your taking time to visit with us today. And one of the things that we are working on as BayTran is if the infrastructure package comes about from the federal government, we definitely want to be included. And a couple of things we're talking about is the widening of the ship channel, the coastal spine, and really we're even trying to tie in the rest of the Grand Parkway potentially if we can get to that point. So that's some of the things we're starting, and now we're trying to visit with the cities to see if they had one project that they'd really like to include in this package. If we could get it done, that then we want to communicate that and be one of the first to have our list together. But anyway, we want you to talk, Mayor Pro Tem, about how Houston's doing with the pandemic and anything else that you think might be beneficial to our BayTran crowd here today.
Sure.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Teresa, and thank you, Carl. I appreciate the opportunity. Hopefully everybody can hear me. We all got these new speakers that we have that works with these Zoom conferences, and it's working real well. Thought I'd give everybody a quick overview of what's going on right now in the city as far as COVID-19 is concerned, and then maybe talk a little bit about some projects that we're working on as well. But if you look at this thing, the big date for us started on March 11th, and that was the date when we shut down the rodeo. We heard of a positive from a police officer that actually lived in Montgomery County that attended the cook-off at around noon, and we immediately made the decision to shut it down because the statistics and the data that we looked at showed that there was no relationship between the police officer and any trips out of town, any people in his family that had it. So then we started to look at this as the first in the beginning of the community spread. And our whole objective since day one, once we shut down the rodeo on March 11th, was to protect the medical center. And when I talk about the medical center, I don't mean the medical center that sits within the middle of the medical center district. I'm talking about all the hospitals in and around the greater Houston area, from Galveston to Clear Lake to Kingwood to Spring and all those areas, because what we were seeing in New York was a run on the ICUs, and we knew that the last thing that we needed was a significant uptick in the ICU population in the city of Houston. So today we just got the weekend statistics in. We had an additional 73 cases, positive cases of coronavirus. That moves us up just below 4,000 to 3,908. And you never like to talk about deaths being a good thing, but for us to have 69 deaths is really a minor miracle. And the reason why I say that is because as you look to our neighbors to the east, New Orleans, then even compare us to Dallas and also to Galveston, who made a decision. We decided to do shelter in place on March 17th. So we shut down the rodeo on the 11th. Shelter in place, stay home, work safe, was issued on the 17th of March. And I think it was 10 days later that Galveston County decided to follow suit because they kept their restaurants open, they kept their bars open. And some of the things that we're seeing with their high numbers, I believe, is a direct result of some of those actions, or what I'll call it is inactions. But for 69 deaths, almost 70 deaths for the fourth largest city in the United States is pretty, in my opinion, pretty good. Of the 69 deaths, 67 have been underlying conditions. So we know from this virus that if you're over the age of 65, you need to be very careful. If no matter what age you are, you have underlying conditions, whether you have asthma, whether you have congenital heart defects, whether you're going through cancer treatments, you really need to be careful because the vast majority of our unfortunate deaths, people have been over the age of 65 and have had underlying medical conditions. There were only 2 that we had that did not have underlying medical conditions. and only one was below the age of 50. So we have three, my wife and I have three kids in their 20s, and we know they're pretty much bulletproof. But the key to all this is making sure that we protect the senior population in the city of Houston. We continue to ramp up our testing capabilities. I think what you'll see this week, we'll probably have an announcement on Wednesday for the beginning stages of what we're calling round 2 on testing, because at first we were limited in the number of PPEs, personal protection equipment, to administer the test. Now what we're seeing now is a decrease in the population of people wanting to get tested. And we've opened it up to everyone that if you want to test, come on to any of our sites and you can have a test. You don't have to have any conditions. You don't have to have any symptoms of COVID-19. Just show up and we'll give you a test. Starting Wednesday, we're going to go into the communities even more. So one of the things that I've been pushing for is more testing in the south end of my district, around Ellington, around Beltway 8, around Clear Lake, in some of the areas that haven't been able to be tested, especially in the seniors community, near senior resident homes, near senior assisted living areas. So we're going to begin that. Hopefully we'll announce that on Wednesday. But what we have done is we've began a successful mass distribution effort last week with giving folks, if they want. I use the bandana every day that Carl was making fun of me a little while ago, but I use the bandana, but we have surgical masks that we're giving out. We've distributed over 1,400 in the Clear Lake area. In the district, which is the north side Kingwood, the south side Clear Lake, we've distributed over 5,000. Many of those to nonprofit organizations, many of those to senior assisted living centers, senior apartment complexes, church groups, school districts, food distributions events that we've had around the area. And we've even delivered them to some folks that are sheltering in place and didn't want to leave their homes. So we brought them and dropped them off at their front door. By the end of the week, we hope to double the mass distribution to a little bit over 10,000. This Friday, May 8th, we'll hold another event in the Clear Lake area at the Freeman Library, which is located at 16616 Diana Lane. We'll begin at 8 o'clock and we'll continue until the last mask is handed out. Once again, it's Friday, May 8th. We did this last Thursday and it ran out at about 9 o'clock. So get there early. Once again, 8 o'clock at the Freeman Library. If you have any questions on masks, if you have a senior assisted living area that you're particular about, concerned about, please call us, 832-393-3008, and we'll make sure that we get that on the radar. That's really about it on COVID-19. Our typical day starts at a number of folks in the city of Houston have a call with the medical center at 7 o'clock. We get a good readout from the medical center. And when I say the medical center, I'm talking about Methodist, Memorial Hermann, Texas Children, MD Anderson, the Texas Medical Center, Bill McKeon, who runs that. Not only those hospitals, but their network of hospitals all throughout the area. So we get a pretty good update on where they are. We really are attuned to the occupancy rates, especially in the ICUs. The latest figure we have are they're well below 50% occupied. They're starting to do elective surgeries now, so that's going to probably help a little bit in getting a lot of the folks back to work. But the occupancy rate of the ICUs is our most critical concern. It's below 50%, but we have a plan. If it gets up any higher than that, we can do some things within the hospital itself. And then I know you noticed a couple of weeks ago, Harris County initiated a temporary tent, I guess I'd call it, for handling COVID-19 patients, similar to what they did at the Javits Center in New York. This would be at NRG. And we hope, knock on wood, we'll never have to use that, but we are prepared to do it just in case we have a run. What concerns us, quite frankly, is opening up the state, like what happened last week with Governor Abbott's verdict. We were ready for that. We think that you take it in a progressive step, and everything we do, again, is to protect the medical center and making sure we have the ability to help people. So we usually have a meeting around 2 o'clock, and then we have our daily press conferences at 3 o'clock every day, just to inform citizens on the latest with COVID-19, what the expectations are, and more importantly, what we're doing about new testing that we get into the community. So that really gives you a good rundown on where we are with the coronavirus. We think we're in pretty good shape. All indications are that we probably have flattened that curve. Everybody's been hearing Dr. Fauci and Dr. Birx talk about flattening the curve. We think that curve has been flattened in around April 27th. And we think that we're going to start see cases drop dramatically. So we had 73 over a 3-day period of the weekend, and that wasn't bad considering the population in the city of Houston. So a number of, Carl mentioned the infrastructure package. I really believe that's going to come to fruition. The reason I believe that is because there has to be something similar to what, you don't want to talk about the Great Depression and things like that, but similar to what happened during those days, and that is a massive undertaken by the federal government. We saw that recently in CARES packages where individuals got checks for $1,200, but we've helped some depressed industries. I think what we're going to see is a re-engineering of President Trump's infrastructure package. And for us, Carl, you mentioned it, our number one priority from the city of Houston is coastal protection and the significance of that as it relates to one of our most important assets, and that is the Port of Houston, and making sure we protect the people, not only in Galveston Bay and in Galveston in and around the South Houston area and Clear Lake, but the economy that runs with it as well. You can't, the biggest thing that I've been concerned about, quite frankly, during this whole COVID-19 has been staying away from the massive rains. And what if you had a shelter in place, social distancing? What if you had another major rain event in the city of Houston? What would that do to our sheltering in place, our social distancing, and some of the things that have, quite frankly, worked very well for us? And one of the things that we've been blessed with, as you look out today, is another beautiful day in the city of Houston. There's been some great weather. So we continue to pray for a nice, calm season, especially as we head into the hurricane season. So with that, Teresa, I'm not sure if you have any particulars you want me to get into, but more than happy to talk a little bit about some of the initiatives down in the Clear Lake and South Belt area and some things that we're working on right now.
Right. Well, that is always a priority for us when we're talking transportation and infrastructure. But we have had some interest on proposed infrastructure project to increase flow capacity of Buffalo Bayou. And how would you see that progressing? I mean, we've heard of options like building large underground culverts or straightening portions around downtown. Flooding is still a pretty distinct concern for the entire Houston region right now.
Yes, and one of the things that we're looking at now is we're working in conjunction with Harris County Flood Control. I think we're working better than we ever had. Better than, this is my 8th year on city council, but it's really better than anything that we've ever had in the past. And, a good example of that is the joint project we're doing with the expansion of El Dorado Boulevard. And some of the things that we're doing there actually relate to flooding that some people had on Horsepin Bayou, and making sure that when we put in an additional road where we expand it from 2 lanes to 4 lanes, we have the ability to, when you replace grass and trees and green space with concrete, it's not good for flooding. So we're making sure that we put in even more flood remediation projects in that area to help with the water flow and the additional water flow we'll see with additional concrete being placed there. You know, you mentioned Buffalo Bayou and the Buffalo Bayou watershed. One of the things that we're working at right now, if you look at the city of Houston, we really haven't done a very good job since Harvey hit in 2018 in really taking care of our water channels. And all throughout, if you look at a map of the watersheds that lead into the city of Houston, I mean, we get water from Montgomery County, from Waller County. We get water from all over the state of Texas leading right into our backyard. And when I say right into our backyard, it's your backyard. It's down in the Bay Area. It's down in south of the Port of Houston. So every major water channel leads right into our backyard. And when you look at some of the tributaries that we have in and around Houston, they haven't been worked on in many, many years. You know, sand and silt has continually flowed down, and we expect it just to mysteriously disappear, and that doesn't happen. We have to get into those channels with equipment, with cranes to do dredging projects, which we're doing all over the city now. And those are some of the things that we need to continually look at. You know, I propose this every year I've been on city council, and that is a continuous 365-day-a-year drainage plan. And that is what happens with all the sand and silt that flows upstream from us right into our backyard. How do you remediate that? How do you have a conscious effort to take that silt out of Buffalo Bayou, out of Cypress Creek, out of Spring Creek, out of Lake Houston, which flows right into the Port of Houston? And what do you do about it? So I think for the first time, we're going to really look at something really closely with that when we move to the budget section that deals with capital improvement projects in the city of Houston. So our fiscal year is different than most other places that you look around at, whether it's private or public, in that our fiscal year starts on July 1 of this year. So we're in the middle of looking at our budget. And by the way, it looks really ugly. We're looking probably at around $200 million of deficit because of the impact of this on predominantly sales tax revenue. But more importantly, as you look at the larger bucket, it's on property values. What's going to happen with folks' property values in the city of Houston? You're looking at somebody that protests his property value each and every year. I do it automatically. And if I was someone that resides in the city of Houston and Harris County, even in Galveston County and points across, I would protest my property value because I don't see a lot of activity in our area as far as homes being bought and sold. I think that's probably been stagnant for, not only the last 6 weeks, but for a couple of months as well. So for us, looking forward to July 1 and the implementation of what we call the 2021 budget, we're going to have a significant impact. About 85% of our budget is related to payroll. So unless we have furloughs and layoffs, there's not a lot of things we can do to maintain that requirement. We're unlike the federal government, we just can't turn on the printing presses and start printing out money for businesses and people. We have to, legally, we are required to pass a balanced budget, unlike the federal budget. So for us, it's going to be looking at ways to try and figure out how do we create $200 million of spending reductions? And what does that look like in the city of Houston? Because unlike the state of Texas and the federal government, we're a service company. We protect you with police and fire. We pick up your garbage. We fix your streets. We have libraries for you to go in, especially with this distant learning things in the underprivileged areas. A lot of our libraries are being used for some of that function. So we're looking at things a little bit differently, and it looks like we're going to have a furlough for all city employees that are not police or fire. So that's going to be a tough challenge for us.
Absolutely. That is tough to hear. Do you expect that the city will increase the drainage fee anytime soon?
I hope not. I'm not a fan of it. but I'm only one of 17 votes there. I think, we're having a tough vote this Wednesday that I'm really struggling with, quite frankly. It's charging people. We do not have a garbage fee in the city of Houston. We're probably one of the only cities in the United States that does not have a garbage fee. Dallas has one, Austin has one, San Antonio has one, New York, LA, Chicago, go through the list of cities. They all have a garbage fee. We don't. I'm not a big fan of having a garbage fee because we've never had one. But what we do have is we have those garbage bins that the automated solid waste management trucks hook up to and empty the garbage into the garbage truck, where we spend about $6 million every year on giving away garbage cans, garbage containers. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start charging people for their garbage containers. And why is that? Number one is because it's an expense that people should pay for. But more importantly, we found out that people were ordering new garbage bins every year, even when they didn't need them. And then some of the folks that were using them, they store mulch in them. They use them for a lot of other reasons other than the automated garbage collection. So it's going to be less than $2 a month, and it's going to be attached to the water bill, but it gives us the ability to have folks who use the City of Houston garbage services, because remember, people that live in Clear Lake, for instance, have contracted garbage service by people outside of the City of Houston Solid Waste Management, Republic Waste, so they will not be charged for their garbage cans because they don't use them.
Well, thank you for that. We have talked a little bit about infrastructure in our calls today with our congressional representatives. BayTran is focused at the local level on some of our CIP projects, but we're also looking bigger picture at what we would like to see in any kind of stimulus or any means of funding that are large scale projects. And you did mention the Houston Ship Channel, which is one of our top priorities, as well as the coastal spine. We are actually very focused on the Grand Parkway, segments A, B, and C as well, as part of a regionally significant project. Now, on the local level, are there any projects in the Bay Area that are coming down the road that maybe our community needs to be looking out for, or expecting some changes due to construction, or anything you need help with?
Yeah, you talk about the Grand Parkway, and like everybody else, I've watched the Grand Parkway evolve from a small little section of road over on the west side near Katy. And now I live up in Kingwood, and that last phase was done taking the Kingwood area and moving down south and towards the east. I think it's ridiculous that they don't have this moving into the area near you guys. Helping folks down there with infrastructure issues. And I know that I've talked to Dennis Paul and Larry Taylor and all the local guys from the state level, because this was a directive from Governor Abbott. And we need to make sure that we talk to everyone in the state to realize the importance of the Grand Parkway. Because if you look at the City of Houston, the way infrastructure was designed, the city sits in the middle. And then we have a belt, which is 610. Then we have an outer belt, which is Beltway 8. Then we now have this outer belt, which is the Grand Parkway. So you look at all those systems and the way that we move traffic in and around the city. The Grand Parkway is it's not important, it's vital to the economics of the Bay Area. And until we get that done from a state perspective, I think we're going to be not moving people and transportation. Look at what's happening right now with trucks going up and down the highway, making sure that we have the supply chain for the grocery stores ready. But as far as specifics for us that we're dealing with infrastructure wise, a lot of our attention this year is going to be spent on flood remediation projects. And 99% of what we do in the capital improvement project area are flood remediation projects. So for us in infrastructure related issues, we're going to look at things like concrete panel replacements, especially in Clear Lake, because while a lot of the roads are good because it's relatively new infrastructure, not like Montrose, not like, you know, areas within the inner city of Houston, but, you know, Clear Lake was developed, you know, way back in the, what was it, the 60s by Friendswood and annexed into the city of Houston in the 70s. So the infrastructure has been relatively ignored in the Clear Lake area and in a lot of parts of the Bay Area because most people think that the infrastructure is relatively new. But if you look at it, it's 50 to 60-year-old infrastructure. And the standards that they're building with today are quite different than they built in 1960s and the 1970s. So while our area is predominantly in good shape as far as infrastructure compared to some of the roads I see in and around the city of Houston, we need to place a strong emphasis on concrete and replacing streets now that are there, but you replace the panels of concrete instead of doing, you know, I applaud everybody who
Oh, I think we lost, oh, there he is. There you
okay,
are.
yeah. So I applaud everybody who filled in potholes, but that's no way to run a railroad. To replace the concrete and the infrastructure in the concrete panel replacements as well. So that's going to be my focus for the South Bay Area and what we're trying to do down there, along with some things related to coastal spawn and port initiatives.
Great, we need it. Carl, did you have any remarks before we wrap up?
Well, you did a great job today, Mayor Pro Tem, and we really appreciate that. And it's always good visiting. And I think you got your priorities straight here, and you know what BayTran's working on. And we're here to support the city of Houston on anything also. But anyway, thanks for the people that joined us today. And it was very informative, Dave. And we look forward to visiting with you again soon. And I think we are adjourned.
Well, thank you, sir. And thanks, Teresa. I appreciate the opportunity. BayTran's a great organization and a vital part of what we're doing in the Bay Area. And as chairman, as a CEO, we need to make sure that everything runs through BayTran as far as infrastructure related initiatives. So keep up the good work and everybody stay safe. That's the most important thing.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
God bless.